Coming up on Man Enough.
I'm so grateful to have learned so much about the way that abusers operate. One of the most painful things was realizing that I wasn't special, that I wasn't in a relationship where it was this thing that we could struggle through together and it was me and him against the world and it was just our energy that no one would understand because this is us. It was not about me. It's about food. I'm just supply. I could have been anyone. I could have walked into that room one day, or another young actor, singer, artist could have walked in the room that day. It could have really been anyone. It was just bad luck that I got a part in a film.
Being man enough, what does that mean?
It's really manly to mess up, admit you're wrong, and then grow.
I couldn't accept that I was evil. So maybe I'm broken, but those broken things could be corrected.
Intimacy between a father and a son is me just wanting to put my head in your lap.
I love you, son.
You haven't called me benevolent sexist, but my experience is women are better.
Even if it's a positive, it's still not equality.
I don't blame men for that. I just blame the system.
This
Is
Man enough.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Man Enough podcast. I'm Jamie Heath.
I'm Liz Plank.
We are here with you to
Yes.
talk and say hello. And it's been a little bit since we've been able to say hello because Liz is all over the country.
Don't blame me.
Oh,
You've
I'm
been
not-
busy.
Yeah, but you're in the work doing all this stuff every day. Every time I look at something, every time I call you, it's straight to voicemail.
Sorry. I'm usually on a plane. That's usually why that happens.
Yeah. Just a real quick background for those of you who are maybe coming for the first time and those who haven't heard us in a while, remembering that our platform and what we do is to talk about how do we redefine what it is to be a man or masculinity, really. And in that spirit, that doesn't mean that we talk about everything that has to do with men. We talk about redefining it, undefining it. We have conversations with people that are experiencing life and how we as men and how oftentimes masculinity has been something that needs to be looked at and how that's in the way of our growth. We want to bring forth an ever-advancing civilization. And in order to do that, we have to reflect and consider and adjust. And we try to do that here. And we do that with just being open and honest and have wonderful people join us and have that conversation.
Yes.
So with that in mind, what are we doing today, Liz?
Well, we always have wonderful people on, but
We do.
today we have a really wonderful person on. I am trying to keep my chill, but I might not be able to throughout this interview because I'm a big, big fan.
Yes.
FKA Twigs is joining us. She's a cultural force. She's a Grammy-nominated artist known for blending music, cinema, art, and fashion. In 2020, she bravely went public with allegations of domestic violence against her ex-partner, Shia LaBeouf. The trial is set to start soon. And after she came forward, many women stood in solidarity with her, and she's inspired so many women to come forward with their stories too. She has become an extraordinary advocate against abuse and supports causes like Sister Space in support of Black female survivors. Recently, she was on the cover of British Vogue. If you checked it out, she looks incredible. The profile is extraordinary. You should all go read it. She also starred in The Crow. She's working on her third studio album, Eusexia, which drops in January 2025. Thank you, Twigs, for taking time out of your very busy schedule
Very
to be with
busy.
us here.
Thank you for having me.
Oh my goodness, it's so wonderful. You are, and I talked about some of the things she's doing in the world. You are all over.
Yeah, I feel very grateful.
I bet. You're a dancer.
Mm-hmm.
My wife's a dancer. Professional dancer. She was a professional dancer. She's now retired, but she was on this show called Mi Sueño es Bailar, which is the Latin version of Dancing with the Stars.
Wow.
So she's also excited that we're with you today. So we like to start our episode with a question.
Mm-hmm.
And however you see fit is the right answer.
Okay.
Which is, when's the last time that you didn't feel enough?
That's such a good question. The honest answer is probably in the wake of leaving my abuser. You know, I think the reverberation of that into my life really left me feeling like I wasn't enough. And I had to do a lot of internal healing and sort of digging inside myself. But yeah, probably in the wake of that.
And what were the things that you believed about yourself that you know aren't true now?
These questions. Straight in.
Yeah, we don't do small talk.
Wow. Yeah. I see. I think I believed I was a really bad person.
Mm-hmm.
Like I really, truly believed that. I mean, not only was I a bad person, but like quite possibly the worst. And everything I did had this terrible malice, disgusting, shameful intent. Which is interesting because I've always really prided myself on knowing that I am a really good person and not perfect, of course, but I'm very gentle and, you know, in my core, quite childlike in some ways. And I think, well, I'd like to think that I have a certain calm and a grace that has always come very natural to me and feels very authentic. And so with those positive character traits in mind, it was so difficult for me to be gaslit into thinking that I was the worst.
Mm-hmm.
And everything I did, every look, every smile, every step, every decision, every piece of art I made, like everything somehow was a slight against somebody who at the time I thought I loved, you know?
Mm-hmm. People don't realize about being in any kind of abusive relationship is that at a certain point, like, I don't know if you experience this, but their voice becomes your own voice.
Yeah.
And you don't even realize that it's happened, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I want to know, like, what did you think is true? Because it's not even what you believe about yourself. It's what you literally believe is factual. And like reality is actually the reality that they've created.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, like how, I guess, like, when did you realize that that was happening and how did you manage to get yourself out of that, gaslighting? And because it takes so much strength to be able to do that.
Yeah, I think in my abusive relationship, I experienced a lot of isolation. And I was actually out here in LA a lot, but the whole of my support network and where I live and my community is all back home. But I'd been here for such a long time, and I think LA can be a lonely place at the best of times, you know, even when you probably live here and have good friends. It's kind of always driving around and stuck in traffic, and there's just a lot of alone time. And I think I was starting my Magdalene tour, and I did the first show. I can't remember. I think I did like a friends and family dress rehearsal. And then I did the first proper show in downtown LA. And I remember I walked on stage and everyone was just screaming. And I was like, hang on a minute, you know, like if I was that terrible at everything, then no one would be screaming my name right now. And I think in that moment I realized, I was like, wow, like, not like none of it's true, but like a lot of it can't be true, you know? So I think in many ways in that moment, I really have my fans to thank for that, you know? Showing me that love reminded me of who I was and reminded me of my truth and, you know, that I wasn't the worst person ever.
Yeah. I think what's hard is that, and you're really speaking to this, is that being in an abusive relationship, chips away at your self-esteem. Like, you know, you feel like the worst person ever, right? Did you think, oh, this is what an abusive relationship looks like? And like, you didn't know that you were in it, right? For a while?
No, I think that abusive relationships in shows and in films can be portrayed. I mean, actually, having said that, I think in more recent times, there are things which show the nuance of it a bit more. But I grew up, I guess, as a young woman watching TV shows of the 90s or soaps of the 90s, and it would look more like a man punching a woman in the eye and then her covering it up with foundation and going into work and saying, I walked into a door, you know, and I really thought that that's what an abusive relationship was. I didn't know that it is so it's like tiny stitches. It's like embroidery. It's like tiny, tiny stitches. And then all of a sudden you step back and it's this whole pattern that you didn't want to ever make.
Would you mind sharing something with us that brings you joy? 2 things that bring you joy.
2 things that bring me joy. So I have a dog called Bam Bam. And,
Bam Bam.
And he's so obsessed with me. And sometimes he spoons me. And it's like almost human. Like he puts his head on my chest and he presses himself into me. And he just wants me to look at him. You know, like, and if I like look away, if I'm watching television, he like paws me just to like stare in his eyes. That brings me a lot of joy.
Bam Bam, okay.
Yeah. And then I have another dog called Chicken Girl.
Chicken Girl.
Chicken Girl.
These names.
Bam Bam and Chicken Girl.
Yeah, why not?
Why not?
And she wriggles so much, but with me, she'll be very still. And I love it. Like I can scoop her up in one arm with her legs hanging over and she just like falls asleep in my arm like this. That brings me joy. Also, I love like, this is weird. Like sometimes I love when they like smell a bit doggy. Is that weird? Like
A little bit weird.
I know what
No,
you
I'm
mean.
kidding. I'm kidding.
Oh, I know exactly
Exactly.
what you mean.
I know when they just-
I might wash the dogs immediately when
yeah,
I
but like sometimes
No,
when
I
they're
get
just a little bit like...
Yeah.
a little bit. It's that sweat, right? It's the running around and the dry
Yeah,
stuff.
it means they've been having a good time. Like when they've been to the park and they've been having a good time and they come back and they're a bit like
Right.
muddy and dirty. Like
Yeah.
I think, you've been having a good time. Like
Yeah, I
that
like
brings
that.
me joy.
I can see that.
Yeah.
The idea that you would enter a relationship that you felt was safe, and then to learn that it wasn't, and then to be stuck, and then to find the courage and the strength and whatever the elements that allowed you to then take that step. We did this movie, It Ends With Us, which is a movie of Wayfarer, which I'm one of the producers of. Justin, who is one of the co-hosts here, directed it and acted. And when we made the movie, we wanted to be sure that we honored and got it right the best we could, knowing that it's, I even hate using this word, entertainment. You're making a movie, so it's for entertainment in the sense that people might watch something.
Mm-hmm.
But what you're putting in there, you want to make sure that you're honoring and doing it delicately and right.
Mm-hmm.
So we partnered with No More, which I know you have a relationship with, nomore.org, who from the very beginning helped with our script, helped with the shots that we might do, what was reflected on screen. And we've learned a lot. Things that I am a man who really cares about protecting women. I have a daughter. It's 34. I have 3 sisters, like many of us. And I was raised with a father that was like, the only way that you can never disappoint me is to hurt a woman. That's the only thing that would make me ashamed of you in any way. It's what I was raised with. And my son has the same directive from me. And yet, I still have patterns, not of abuse, but patterns that I've had to adjust and learn, whether it's even the cadence of my voice that then gives another man the ability to use the cadence of his voice higher and stronger. Am I holding my friends accountable when they mistreat somebody? So that someone like yourself is not in that position, that my daughter is not in that position. Not your faults, it's our fault. Now that you're out of that, can you share whatever you're comfortable with of how it still may affect you? What are the steps? What do you do to remember and to remind yourself that you are indeed fucking enough, that you are not the bad person that someone reflected back to you that was all bullshit? Sorry for the language. What are some of those things that you do that maybe we can learn from or someone?
Yeah. I think that's the interesting thing is when I first came out and shared my story of being abused, I had this kind of fight or flight burn to tell the truth because I'd not been telling the truth for so long. And it was like this internal energy, you know, this drive, but it comes from a place of survival. It comes from a place of, it felt very primal, you know, like the infinite energy to explain the things that had happened to me over and over and over again. I would do it, and when it first started, I almost wouldn't feel exhausted by it. It felt like this drive of finally wanting to tell the truth. That's not sustainable. You know, it's not sustainable because the journey that I've been trying to heal myself and the path that I've been wanting to get on is back to a path of being open, being trusting, being gentle. You know, like being able to sit in my divine feminine energy, which is something that was absolutely not allowed in that relationship. The residue of being in an abusive relationship is something, it's so hard to explain almost unless you've been through it, because you spoke earlier about the voice. You know, when someone else puts their voice in your head and everything you do is wrong, and you want to reclaim your own voice and reclaim your own choices and decide from every decision, whether it's getting a coffee to taking a job to the way that you arrange your home to having a shower or not, all of these choices that once were perhaps determined by someone else who was very controlling, that person goes and all of a sudden you need to make those decisions for yourself. And it's actually terrifying because it's that self-judgment. Do you know how long it takes to make a simple decision, judge yourself for it, go back on the decision, decide that that decision was in fact right, and then encourage yourself to stick to that decision on everything, on what you wear, on where you go, on who you hang out with. It's just really time consuming. It's extremely time consuming, and it's exhausting. But it has in some ways got better. I have become a very strong person through this experience, and I think that I have maintained my softness, or regained and reclaimed my softness and my openness and my childlike spirit. But it's definitely like it's not been a linear healing journey at all.
Yeah.
Do you find that while you've been coming forward and sharing it so bravely and you articulate it in a way that is palpable, but are you also faced and challenged with many people who dismiss it? Oh, that was, or I don't know, fight you on it?
I mean, not now. I think when I first came out, it was very obvious who I wanted to be in my life. I mean, it's what's happened to me at this age that I am now. It's my life before my abuser and my life after my abuser. Like that's the way that I you know, I think, was it Sylvia Plath that said there's life before you lose your virginity and then there's life after you lose your virginity. You know, it's like bigger than that. There's my life before I was abused, and the way that my body worked and my mind worked in the way that I was naturally wired through nurture and nature. And then now I am completely different, you know, for better, because healing makes you better, but then for worse as well. Sometimes my body does wild things which I've not told it to do. When I get stressed, you know, the way that my body reacts to cortisol or difficult situations that I feel that I used to be able to handle with less physical impact. You know, cortisol is a really interesting thing. And what happens when you're in an abusive relationship scientifically is in your brain, when you are stressed or when you are under threat, your body releases cortisol as a fight or flight mechanism, and it's there to help you survive. So if we were in danger right now, when people talk about everything slowing down or speeding up, or you know, women lifting cars off their baby buggies, it's a stress response to help you survive. Now, when you're in an abusive relationship, the abuser can trigger that fight or flight all the time, and you end up with so much fear constantly. So imagine if just every half an hour you were scared. A firework's going off every half an hour, and then cortisol is being released into your body all the time, every single day. It kind of breaks your system because you can't tell then, once you've left your abuser, what is a 1 out of 10. I mean, physically, biologically, I'm not even talking about something that you're aware of. Physically and biologically, your body can't tell what needs like a tiny bit of cortisol and what needs a whole dump.
Makes sense.
So what can happen is you're walking down the road and a bike can go past you quickly. And instead of just being like, oops, sorry, like most normal, healthy, regulated people, a bike can go past you and your whole body can shut down. For me, I mean, it's my neck. Oh my gosh, like my neck is insane since being abused. I just have like just random pain in it and in it, but it's not the type of neck ache of like, oh, like my neck's a bit sore. It's like I can't move, and I'm trying to dance, I'm trying to perform, and I'm like this, and it's something that is frustrating. You say that your wife's a dancer, and to have that control over your body and just to know how to stretch and not get injured, and that's the beautiful thing about being a dancer and being a mover is that I have so much control and such a deep relationship with my body, and then to lose that relationship, it's so sad.
So yeah, has lasting effects.
It has such lasting effects, and so yeah, I think people do dismiss it because I think that they don't understand. And I've spoken before about the outpour of support that I got when I first came out, which is amazing. So many people came forward, and I felt like so many people. I was able to help so many people and help them leave or come to terms with being in an abusive relationship, but this is now years on. That support, it dwindles, and you realize who was virtue signaling and who was really there. And sometimes I find myself alone, and it's harrowing, like to think what I've been through in those alone moments. It can feel, it's just a very, very, very traumatic time. It's just a very traumatic time. Yeah.
I love that you are talking about it. Without getting into it, but for 10 years of my life when I was a kid, I was sexually abused. I didn't talk about it until I got much older. So I carried a lot of shame. I blamed myself in ways that I maybe wouldn't have had to had I not processed it. I didn't want to be challenged. I didn't want to feel belittled and gaslit, which when I did finally start talking about it, and I was. But I learned once I started facing the monster, for me, the healing happened. And it was tough, and there's lasting effects, and I have some PTSD, and there's things, all this stuff. But the process of talking about it and doing work and helping others and being a safe space and giving permission to others was a big part of my healing, and able to no longer blame myself for whatever I could blame myself, and not be handcuffed by it. Sorry to bring that up in the middle of this conversation, other than to say that I know the value of talking about it.
Yeah.
And how brave it is, and what it does for humanity, but also what it does for you, so that some of these lasting effects can be less lasting, can maybe not have a hold wherever it may or may not. You seem like you're thriving and doing wonderfully, so I'm sure you are, and you're doing fantastic. But also, the gravity of what happens to you during that time, as you expressed, has to leave scars in some way. And so I'm glad to just see that you're dealing with it as you are and holding him accountable, and which then in turn holds other men accountable. So as silly as this sounds, I'm proud of you and happy that you're on this path. And you look like my sister. You look like my daughter. So I'm pulling for you in life, and we'll continue supporting all the incredible work you're doing. Thank you for sharing so much.
Thank you.
So how are you feeling about this trial coming up?
I feel like I am looking forward to telling the truth. I feel strong and I feel capable, and I feel grateful to have closure, and also through the trial be able to help more people, raise awareness. I have amazing support, not just from my family and my friends, but also through organizations that I'm associated with, Sister Space, and of course No More have been really incredible. And I feel that it's a moment for me to tie this up in a bow and move on with my life with grace and pride, and knowing that I've done something really great for culture and for humanity.
Thank you. for that. So when you go through a process of this nature, you mentioned about closure. Is the process itself, is that the thing that is that bow? Because now there's been some accountability of some sort that helps you put that now behind you. What happens for you maybe with that? Because I think a lot of people want accountability, and maybe you can help us understand.
Well, I think for me, the way that my mind works, like it's kind of around logic and reason. And I think that when I was in my abusive relationship, it was completely void of logic and reason. So although stepping forward and wanting to get legal accountability from an abuser is a very daunting and very heavy task. And I think it's important that I stress that. I think that I will find solace just the way my personality works, knowing that I have done something that in itself, within the structure of that, holds logic and reason high, if that makes sense. But I also think, it's interesting because when people are in an abusive relationship, you spend the whole of that relationship protecting your abuser because you think you're in love. So it's a complicated thing. It's not just a crime where you're walking down the street and someone does something to you and it's on camera and it's complicated because you're constantly protecting your abuser. You're covering the bruises. You're making out like you're better than you are. You're lying about the arguments. You're lying about the situation at home. You're lying about being abused. And so, talking about raising awareness, like if there's one thing that I've learned and if there's one thing that I would urge any people that feel that they're in an abusive relationship, if it's safe to, and only if it's safe to, and even if you don't think you're ever going to go forward and speak about this, just record what's happening to you. Or if you have one person that you feel that you can trust to send pictures, to send messages, to whatever it is, send recordings that you have. Just have them somewhere in a safe place if you feel that it's safe to. Because it's complicated, but I have a wonderful legal team and I have great support and I'm ready. Like I do. I feel ready. And I feel grateful to have the opportunity to tell the truth about what's happened to me.
Good. You stand tall. That's right.
There's like a part of the healing that I feel like people don't talk about where when you it's obviously in a way a positive thing when you realize what, sort of the lights come on and you realize, oh my God, I've been living in this house of horrors. But you start feeling worse about yourself for having been in that abusive relationship, right? You go like, oh my God, not only, do you feel beat up psychologically by the abuse, but then you kind of judge yourself, right, for being in that situation. Or that's what happened to me. And obviously then it's reinforced by all these cultural messages that we get where people say, oh my God, you're so strong. How could you end up in a relationship like that? Or, I love that publicly when you were asked, why did you stay, that you were like, we have to stop asking that question because that's the wrong framing, right? Like, why did you trap me, right? That's what we should be asking abusers, not women who are trapped by them. And I want to share something that helped me at the time. Like, I met this person at a wedding who, is like kind of an expert on sociopaths. and immediately I was like, I'm just talking to you the entire time at this wedding. And I said, what's the number one thing that leads someone to be in a relationship with someone who is, abusive, who's a liar, or who's, a sociopathic liar, all those things. Because I was like, oh, I want to get better. I want to not, be trapped in that ever again. And he was like, oh, truth bias. And I was like, what's truth bias? And he said, because you tell the truth, you assume that everyone else tells the truth. Right? So he was like, it's because you're a good person, that you got stuck in this, not because you're bad, right? And I just felt at the time, like that needed to be part of the framing, right? That was sort of the framing that I was looking for at the time that I couldn't really find in the resources that were available. So I guess my question is like, what did you need to hear at the time that would have helped speed up, this sort of healing process? Obviously that you're still in, but was there something that a person could have done, right? Like for people who are listening who maybe think that they have a friend who's going through something like that, would there have been something that someone could have said or done that would have been helpful?
Honestly, I think the sad thing is no. Yeah, I don't think it's as simple as that. I don't think, no, I don't. Not for me. I think that I had to work it out for myself. It was one of those very adult and terrible lessons that I had to go through, and I had to figure it out and come to my own conclusion and see the light and understand what I was in. Of course, I had people around me that wanted to help and were helpful in that situation, and I also had people around me that were extremely unhelpful, and it's a really tough industry, and my relationship was kind of packed around the entertainment industry, and there are a lot of incredible people in the entertainment industry, and then there's some kind of more dubious characters, and I think it's something that I had to figure out for myself, but I think no judgment helps, feeling that, because that's part of the isolation actually, is that you tell somebody what's happened and how terrible it is, and then they're like, "We'll leave," and you're like, "Yes, I'm gonna leave," and then maybe you do leave, and then you go back, and it's the shame of like, "Oh no, now I've gone back, and now I'm embarrassed because that person knows." So for me, sometimes it was easier just to stop talking to that person.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot, where there are people who are in relationships, you share it with your friends and your family.
Yeah.
Now they're like, "Oh my God, get out," or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
You end up going back for a host of reasons, because of love, because there's also some good things about it that bring you back, because of whatever it may be. And then now you feel judged by those people for going back. So then the next time it happens, you don't share it.
Yeah.
Because you're going to continually be judged. So then that in itself is like a trap.
Yeah, it's like a cycle.
Because that cycles, and then
it confirms what the abuser's probably saying about your friends too, right? Like, but sorry.
Yeah, no, even like we hear about this all the time, where how there are someone who's been in a relationship, this is not an abusive situation, but like where there's infidelity, and a woman might share that her husband was unfaithful, gets through it, decides to stay. The next time her husband's unfaithful, doesn't share it, because everyone's like, "What the hell is wrong with you? Why are you staying in this?" All the judgment that comes with it. So these cycles just keep happening. And then you don't have. But I do have a question upon reflecting. Would you say that while you were experiencing this, were there not friends of his and people around him that knew what was going on, that should have known, that could have known had they had open eyes?
I don't think my abuser really had any friends, if I'm honest with you. Like, I think that through his behavior, I think he had pushed a lot of people away, and I think maybe the people that were closest to him were involved like more in the industry, so then it's kind of like they have their own agenda.
Yeah, sure.
So, and I think that's something that's difficult within my industry, that people are often enabled when they're making money, when they're successful, when they're famous, when they're handsome, when they're brilliant, when they're a star, It's like this thing, we've seen it many times of lots of abusers. We're seeing it at the moment very publicly, where like abusers have got away with so much because they're talented, or they make money, or
But that's my point. So not to challenge what you're saying, because I hear you, thank you.
Yeah.
I also think that there had to have been, even though he didn't have friends, as much as you had said, that there are signs, there are little things. Like if my daughter is dating a guy, okay, maybe no one knows what's happening behind the closed doors, but you do see the way that he might treat a waiter, or other people in the world, or if he's controlling in his work, or just how he behaves. Enough do we hold each other accountable. The reason why I'm saying this is that I think that there are a lot of women that are in relationships that could also be protected if those around did something with the person, held the man responsible.
Yes, but the thing you need to understand is like obviously abusers are often narcissists and they have a mask when they go into the world. So often abusers are so nice to everybody, so amazing to the
Agreed.
waiter,
Yeah.
actually do huge acts of
Service,
generosity
generous.
to the homeless, to people in need, and to, you know, friends or people at work. And I think the aim of that is so that if you come out and you say, this person's doing this to me, like this is terrible, everyone around will say, they're great.
Right.
They feed the homeless at Christmas. Like they're so lovely to the waiter. And that's a really confusing thing, you know, and I'm so grateful to have learned so much about the way that abusers operate. But I was so disappointed to learn how boring it is because they all operate the same. You know, I think one of the most painful things was realizing that I wasn't special, that I wasn't in a relationship where it was this thing that we could struggle through together and it was me and him against the world and it was just our energy that no one would understand because this is us. It was not about me. It's about food. I'm just supply. I could have been anyone. I could have walked into that room one day, or another young actor, singer, artist could have walked in the room that day. It could have really been anyone. It was just bad luck that I got a part in a film. That's honestly how I feel now. I choose not to take it personally. It's devastatingly boring, you know, like the tactics. So yeah, I don't know, narcissists, they just have a mask and they go into the world and it's kind of can be confusing because you think, how are they being so nice to that person? But then when we go home, they're so awful to me. So of course, yeah, we can hold people accountable and that's very important. But I think if people don't really understand or they don't know if their friends are abusive, I don't think they can feel badly about themselves because narcissists trick everybody and
I agree.
they lie.
That makes sense.
They lie a lot.
I just want to take the onus off because you did say something that you had to get there yourself in a sense to make the choice.
Yeah.
And I respect that and appreciate that. I also don't want you to be in the position to have to make that choice. How do we protect you next time? How does society get better at identifying early on when men have tendencies? Maybe at friends, was it 10 years ago? Was there people around him? Did his parents see how he treated people? Did he in his temper tantrums? I don't know what those exact things were. My bigger point is how do we learn so we don't keep repeating so that someone like yourself or another is not in that situation where they then have to make the choice that we raise men to be different and to bring awareness that's different. Like, what are some of those steps? And so it's not to dismiss what you're saying because I'm learning a lot. Thank you for that. I'm also just wanting it to not be about that it was your responsibility, that it was your fault.
I don't feel like it's my fault. It's just unfortunate, you know. Life takes you down the paths that it takes you. You never know when you're going to bump into someone in a supermarket. But I certainly don't think it's my fault. I think it's his fault. But
it is, yeah.
I think it's his fault.
But we oftentimes make women, not that it's their fault, but we leave them.
We do. We do. But I think this, and that's been one of the benefits of me coming forward and talking about this is there are subtle signs that you can see actually very early on when engaging with a narcissist or an abuser, that I'd say if there's more than two, like I think it's likely that this person has issues.
What are some of those signs? They're more subtle.
I mean, love bombing. You know, I mean, we're all great and we're all beautiful and incredible and we all deserve the world, but sometimes someone's going a bit overboard. You know, and you can feel that when someone's really trying to engage with you, get your attention, big displays of affection very early on, over and over and over again. I mean, we all want to be whisked off our feet. You know, it's amazing to think that somebody can love us so much, but I don't believe in the saying now to fall in love, you know. I think that it's nice now to just walk slowly at a very sensible and respectable pace into love, you know, like, and that's kind of the way that I work now, not just in my romantic life, but with friends and with collaborators as well. What else is there? I mean, honestly, there's so many. You must know some.
I mean, one that's subtle that, because again, I think love bombing, I think we've talked about this with No
We
More,
have,
right? The difference between love bombing and like really liking someone, you know? I think
There's
that
a big
can,
difference.
yeah. What is it for you? Like,
Love bombing it's like they put you on a pedestal and they kick you off.
Yes.
And it starts becoming this cycle.
Yes.
And they put you back on the pedestal and then they kick you off. And then for me, after a while, I wasn't put back on the pedestal. I was trying to climb back onto the pedestal with like bloody fingers and sore muscles, like trying to climb back onto the pedestal. Breadcrumbing, which I think is when someone gives you just enough to stay interested.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah,
We like that.
that's a big one. Also, people using flying monkeys, which is basically where they target people around you. It could be your family, your friends, their friends, to kind of give you subliminal messages that you're doing something wrong, or that they love you, or that you should go back, or whatever it is, whatever message they want to
whatever reality they want to create.
whatever reality they'll use other people to block you into that reality almost.
It's almost like they're like directors and they're like directing your life like it's a movie scene, right?
Conducting it. Everyone around you is just an instrument for the melody that they want you to hear.
Exactly. And you're an instrument too, except at the beginning you feel like the star, right? Like, but you're not. You're just another prop.
Wow.
In there.
You're an apply, you're supply,
Yeah. It's almost like a good like metaphor is like they literally come on stage. Right? Like there's something about, I think, again, abusers or narcissists where like it's a performance, you know? And so I think authenticity is something I look for really early now of, again, like, are you saying all these things because you believe them, or are you saying them to get something?
Mirroring.
Yes. Mirroring is a big one too. Yes.
Yes.
If they like start slowly turning into you.
Or like, what's your favorite food?
Yeah.
What is your favorite food?
It's pad thai.
Mine too.
Yes, right.
I love
That's
pad
mirroring.
thai.
That's mirroring.
Pad thai
She hates pad thai.
I don't hate it. It's just
So how does one manage? This is really interesting, and I'm trying to like always wrap my head around this because that makes complete sense.
Yeah.
And yet also, when you are really into something, like if all of a sudden I find a new sport that I love so much, then oh my God, I want to do it all the time. If I find a new show, I want to binge watch it, not because you're just like, oh my gosh, I want to keep seeing the next episode. If I meet a friend that is so much fun and likes similar interests, you want to share that and maybe expedite the process of doing it more. I met my wife, and I was like, we're going to be married. Like that is an incredible, like, I mean, this is after we knew each other a little bit. And once we got to know each other, my feeling of wanting to expedite it was this idea, when you realize you want to spend the rest of your life with someone, you want the rest of your life to start now. You know, it was like based on this is a When Harry Met Sally quote. Where is that balance then? That when a man is interested and showing that interest and wants to appropriately give it his all.
Yeah, but
where is that balance, do you think?
It's different because if you feel good, then you feel good. I think it's when the emotions become really extreme. It's like when you feel like you're on eggshells to feel good. But often abusers, they have this kind of honeymoon period, which can last anywhere, from even a few days to months.
Yeah, right.
And then it starts to go wrong. And then I think for the victim, you're just constantly trying to get back to where you were before. And the abuser will make you feel like it's your fault that we can't be there together in the beginning. It's because of what you said, because of what you did. And thi'll give you just enough, the breadcrumbing, just the hints of the magic, just the hints of the romance of
to keep you satiated.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think it's not that if someone's doing lovely things for you, then that's necessarily a terrible thing. It's not. That's amazing. But it's more if you notice yourself having a lot of anxiety and being on eggshells, and if the highs are high and the lows are low, like this for me in any relationship now is a nightmare.
Yeah.
It's an absolute nightmare. And
You don't want 10s and 1s. You want it to be at a 7 is how I go into it. And like, even to respond to your question, because I think that's right. Like, to me, what I've learned is like, if you slow things down and the person, like if you really do think that I'm going to be your wife and that's why you're excited, like me wanting to slow things down will be fine with you.
Sure.
But with an abuser, like it's not, right? Like early on, if you are putting, that's why like, I now like really slow down physical like intimacy. Like I really take like sometimes months. And it has helped me weed out the people that at first I thought like, oh my God, this person's perfect. But because I'm setting a boundary, like how do they respond to me having a boundary early on in the relationship? I think there's a way to be excited, but still, slow. Again, to anyone who's listening who does get in these relationships, like slowing things down creates those speed bumps that would catch like a person.
Possibly catch it.
Because if your wife had said like, oh, can we just move things a little bit slower? You would have been like, of course. I'm assuming.
Of course, and heartbroken.
What? Heartbroken? Yes.
I mean, not heartbroken.
But you wouldn't have like guilted her or
not.
like tried to like manipulate her to like.
No.
You would just been like, I know I'm going to be with. I know this person is right for me. So like, like no one regrets taking things too slowly. I think we regret taking things, fast, and abusers will want to go fast.
Abusers want to go so fast.
Yes, because they don't want you to
Abusers
think
want to go what?
Very fast. Yeah, they want you. They want to go very fast
Yeah.
because they can't keep their mask on for long.
Well, that's a good point.
Yeah, so they need to get you hooked in there, and then they can take their mask off.
So then, how do we make that distinction? Because we're not saying that all people who go fast are abusers.
No.
Right? Because there's a lot of men that go fast, and that's what they've learned, and that's what they've emulated and stuff. Certainly, we're not saying that. Let me make it personal. What can I do? I don't necessarily mean for you directly, but indirectly. What can I do with the next 20 years of my life? When people are listening to you talk about this and we walk away, and the question is, what can I do different?
Yeah. I think where I'm at the moment in my healing journey is that a lot of men are so beautiful, like so beautiful and so divine, and masculine energy is so incredible. It can be so grounding and so protective and so calm and sturdy, and it's really important. It's important to the balance of the world and the energy in the universe. Like masculine energy is something that really should be celebrated. And I don't know, like on a wider scale, not what you can do, but as a society, I think we could allow young men to express their feelings more when they're very young. I think that we should allow men to be beautiful. I think that narcissists and abusers, not that it's any excuse at all, often have had a very traumatic event early on in their life, and that's not an excuse. It's still not acceptable.
But it helps explain.
But it helps explain it.
Correct.
So I think two things. I think first, allowing men to be beautiful and allowing society to nurture young men more in terms of handling their emotions, and also holding men accountable, for when they do hurt people and when it does go wrong. I think we need to hold men accountable, regardless of whether they're running a big corporation or they're handsome or they're famous or they're rich or they make a lot of people money. Like they still need to be held accountable, and that can be quick and painless, and there can be a lot of growth from that. I think, if us as a society put the boundaries and barriers and checkpoints in place to make sure that when things do go wrong, it can be handled in a more clinical way. But I think that also goes back to the opinions and the energy that we have around women in particular that get into domestically violent relationships. I have no shame about it. Now, finally. I have no shame about it, and I think that it's easy, if a woman finds herself in an abusive relationship, it's easy for everyone to be like, oh, it's a bit messy. I'll stay away from her. Like, I was saying earlier, it's that thing of like, she's a bit of a mess, she's crazy. Oh, well, I wonder what her upbringing was like to end up with a man like that. And I think we have to start changing the narrative. And that's what I've tried to do in coming forward and speaking about this, because never in a million years did I ever think this would ever happen to me. Not when I was,
Wow.
Just never. I don't know. I just never thought that.
Yeah.
I'm a very strong and emotionally intelligent young woman, and I always have been ever since a child. I've always been very in touch with my emotion. I've always looked at social situations and felt like I have a deeper understanding of what's going on with everyone on an emotional level, almost as a bit of a superpower. So I never thought that I would be like hoodwinked and had the wool pulled over my eyes in such an extreme manner as I did. But that's the thing, it can happen to everybody, or it can happen to anybody. Yeah, it really can.
Well, yeah, being a victim of domestic violence, blaming someone for being a victim of domestic violence is like blaming someone for being hit by a car, right?
Yeah.
It's like it just happened to you. It's the car. Like you were just walking,
Yeah.
and
true.
anyone can be hit by a car, right? Like, and
That's a really strong statement. Agreed with. One that I think needs to be digested. Forgive my language. I think a lot of people need to hear that over and over again, because I think we find ways to find the nuance to not make it that. Getting hit by a car, you just walked out and you got hit by it. Was there a choice? Were there flags? Were there signs? Could they have done something different? All that stuff is done, which then is to gaslight.
Yeah.
So I'm agreeing with you, and the only reason why I mention it is because I hear this a lot. I'm sure you do. You more than anybody. I imagine people challenge you. So I interrupted you. I'm sorry.
No.
I just wanted to.
Yeah, and again, it's kind of wild that it needs to be said, right? These people are predators, right? And if you're a victim of a predator, to your point, if it's never happened to you, I think it can be hard for people to understand it. But I think that's where, you coming forward with your story so publicly, like when you have a lot to lose to do it, and the weight of going through the justice system to fight this is incredibly taxing on every level: physical, economic, spiritual, like you name it. It's re-traumatizing, I'm sure, for you to be going through this. And at the same time, that's the more, people see that and people learn about these relationships and these crimes. I mean, it's not even really, it's crimes. like the better equipped we will be as a society to make sure that this doesn't happen, and that the healing isn't prolonged because you're like, oh, it's my fault, that someone else did something. Speaking of this, I don't know if you call it a rebirth, but this sort of pre-relation or pre-abuse and post-abuse sort of version of yourself, like, can you talk about how you learned to trust again?
Yes.
What does that reconstruction process look like, and what are you excited about yourself, or excited that you're experiencing about yourself now in this new renaissance?
Yeah, I think for me, it just takes time. It takes time for me to trust people. I joke with my partner now. I mean, it's a joke, but I'm serious sometimes, where I say, like, is this it? Like, is this how happy we are now, and like how nice you're being and how lovely it is? I'm like, is this it? And he says, yeah. I'm like, okay. Like, sometimes I do, like, even in the nicest moments, sometimes I do still need that, like, is this real? Is something...
You're waiting for the shoe to drop.
Yeah, kind of, because I've come from something where the happiest days would end up the worst,
You're right. That makes sense.
Yeah. So
guarded. That's the PTSD.
Exactly. So I think those like verbal affirmations and just being around people that understand me and make space for me, and it really takes time to learn how to be me again.
Yeah.
And I can say now, like, me was and is great.
Yeah.
So I really want to be me.
Yeah.
And every time I feel like my true authentic self has like a period of time where I am thriving and the pain of it all can drop from it. I mean, it's just like amazing just to like be myself, which sounds like so silly.
Doesn't at all.
Yeah. But it's incredible in those moments where I get to be myself, because there was a time when I wasn't allowed to be myself.
Yeah. Well, you lose yourself, right? And I think that comes back to, all these warning signs, right? That you're like often taught to look in in the other person, right? Are they doing this? Are they doing that? But it's also like, how do you feel? I don't know if you experience that too, right? Of like this guardedness of like, I have to figure out, are they this like, manipulative? But it's like actually about checking in with yourself.
Yeah, exactly. It's just time. Yeah, it's just time. I think an abusive relationship isn't like a normal relationship where you think, okay, 3 to 6 months, I'm going to be sad, I'm going to eat ice cream, I'm going to like live my Bridget Jones fantasy, and then I'm going to get back to it. It's not like that, It's not linear. There's a lot of up and downs. Just because you see a survivor and they might look amazing and be successful, it's not always like that behind closed doors. For me, my biggest thing that I've had to work on is not thriving out of fear. Like not, for a long time I was like, okay, well, I've been in an abusive relationship and everyone knows this. So now I need to be like bubblegum friendly and like everything's great. I'm not crazy at all. Like everyone can look at me and see I'm doing really good and everything's happy, which also isn't me. That's also not
funny
my
when you did that voice right there, you almost sounded like with an American accent. Like,
yeah, but it's like that, I think for a long time I thought I had to feel better. I thought I had to be the most perfect, shiny, most bubblegum palatable version of myself, which I'm like a very avant-garde artist. Like surely that's kryptonite to my work and kryptonite to, who I am. But now I feel that I've definitely, I have found the balance now and I can embrace, a lot more of the darkness in me and the deeper guttural expressions. Like they don't scare me anymore. I embrace them now how I embraced them before I met my abuser. Which I don't know if that makes sense. It's like life doesn't always have to be like angels and rainbows and sparkles. There is a balance, like the more like mystical and darker and brooding and artistic expressions, like they're so important as well. But yeah, for me as an artist and coming out of an abusive relationship, that was definitely a journey to go on.
To that, once makes me want to ask you a question, which is, what do you think? I hope this is an appropriate question. Oftentimes when someone has been hurt and they've reemerged, people who learn that they've been hurt might treat them in a fragile way, as if, they've been through so much, like, oh, be careful how you talk about them, and tiptoe around, and, they're fragile. And then many, from what I've heard, are like, I'm not a fragile being, you can be real with me, like, and yet people want to be mindful. What do you feel, and maybe this is a question for both of you, of how once you have expressed this and now many people know about this versus if you just would have kept it to yourself, which thank God you haven't. But had you, people wouldn't know otherwise and they just would treat you as they would any time. Have people treated you differently now? And do you appreciate that? Or would you rather have us who learn about it just like, yo, you can still like fart around me. I'm not going to like... I don't know why that came out. But, be real. That's what's the point about it. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's really funny. Yeah, that's a good question. I think when I first came out with my story, I sort of would be walking around in my area.
Right.
Like hood up, just like getting a coffee from somewhere. And I would like look over and there would be like a woman in a cafe and she'd be like.
Exactly, right.
And I'd be like, which is sweet, it's sweet. But I think for people closest to me, my inner circle, of course, understanding is so important. And I wouldn't have been able to find healing if I hadn't have had that understanding. But now I think in my personal experiences, I always knew I was going to have to heal in front of the world. And I think I even said that. I was like, well, I'm, just going to have to do it. And I think I always felt extremely privileged, actually, and this is going to sound like a weird thing to say, but I always felt very privileged that when I left my abuser, I was able to go back to my beautiful house in East London and go back to my dog and afford to eat and kind of like on some levels be able to keep my life going with like the things that I needed to feel stable. And I'm just so aware that so many women do not have that privilege. So many women are financially tied to their abusers. So many women, when they leave, they're quite literally left with nothing. And I think the financial impact of being in an abusive relationship is catastrophic. It is very bad because you can't concentrate on making money. You can't concentrate on the things that you need to survive or to thrive or to grow your business or to do whatever it is you want to do. In accepting that privilege that I had in being able to go back to my nice house, I think that I definitely have taken it on the chin, like the fact that I will have to heal in front of everybody and that that's part of this journey and somehow that's part of this life lesson of, I guess, being exposed in this way, because it does feel exposing, especially for me. I mean, I don't need this to make people like my art more. You know, like I feel so comfortable in what I create and I feel so happy with you know, I don't need this to have people know my name in any way. Like I'm a very private person and I've always kept my private life like close to my chest, and I've always had the focus really be on my work and what I create and my offering to culture. So for this part of my life to be really blown open, I think that I accept it, and like I said, I accept my privilege in the situation, and it's just part of the journey to get the word out there and to spread the message and to hopefully make some change in culture. But when I was a kid, never did I ever think that this would be part of my journey. Never, ever, ever did I.
Yeah, how could you?
But you know what? It's okay. It is, and I accept it. A therapist actually said to me, and it really helped me, and it's kind of around the kind of, for me, like the internal conversation around when you've been hurt by somebody. But she said, you've hurt me, and I have a lot of compassion for the person I was when I was in the centralized moment of that hurt, and I have a lot of compassion for the way that I acted, and I accept that you've hurt me. Does that make sense?
It does.
I accept that I've been hurt, and I accept that the whole world knows about it. And I accept that they will have to see me heal and hopefully thrive more and overcome this. Like that's just part of this journey in this life. And I am okay with that now.
I can even add to that. I think, I don't know what one's spiritual path is, and which I have a deep one and believe in purpose, and, you know, like most of us do it in different ways. But what I do believe God does is he always turns a wrong into a right. The atrocity that happened throughout humanity, they find a way to then elevate humanity. Slavery, for one, someone to frame this with me. What happened with slavery, and to all our people, should not have happened. It was wrong, wrong, wrong. You want to see true forgiveness and compassion? Take someone that was from their country on a boat, enslave them, teach them about Christianity. Now look at Black people throughout the world who are Christians, who love white people, and embrace the faith that was used to enslave them. That can only happen if someone in a capacity of these people, our people, demonstrated to the rest of the world what true compassion, to be able to see beyond the evil, to be able to see the humanity in the evil, behind the evil. And therefore it ends up, I feel like 1,000 years from now, in the next world, however one might believe about heaven and dying, that God is like, you were helpful in building humanity up. So to bring it to a granular level, I hate what's happened to you. But you will be remembered for helping humanity grow. And that should not be your responsibility. And yet, in generations to come, you will be one that helped us grow. So I'm sorry and thank you.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about it like that.
Yeah.
That's nice. I've also said like this isn't, it's not really about me. It's just about everyone that's ever gone through anything like this as well.
Wow. There's so much about your life I know this is one aspect that has taken that has a big microphone and a big impact. Yeah. But there's so much like your art that we didn't get to talk about. And I know that we were really going to use this time to talk about this particular issue, but there's so much in movies and you're dancing and singing and we want to honor and celebrate you. And while we're not going to get into it now, we know that there's so much more that you're offering humanity as well. So congratulations and all that. And
thank you.
So for those of you who don't know her stuff, look her up. Look her up. Fantastic artist. Should we start getting to our final questions, Liz?
Yeah. Okay. What does it mean? What does it mean to you to be man enough? What does man enough mean? What would someone who's man enough be like?
Oh, that's a good question. You've got all the good questions.
You got all the good answers.
Yes, you do.
I think to tell the truth and admit when you're wrong.
There you go.
Yeah.
Simple enough.
Yeah, I think it's simple enough.
I don't think anyone's ever said that.
Yeah.
And it's so
Really?
like just simply the truth.
Yeah. No excuses. No, bells and whistles. Like just tell the truth and admit when you've done something wrong.
Yeah.
Hmm.
A really good thing to look out for also early in a relationship.
It is, yeah.
It's like, it's so simple.
Yeah, it is.
But a real testament to who that person is.
Yeah.
Who that man is. Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us. You are absolutely lovely.
You're incredible.
I think you are going to, throughout your life, you are going to bring more balance to the world.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to contribute so much, and your legacy, I know, will live and live. You are a powerhouse of a person and an artist, but as a woman and as a human. Thank you for blessing us and being with us and sharing us.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, Liz.
Yeah.
My goodness. What do we do? We end this with love, and Justin is not with us today, of course. Justin always wants to be with us, but scheduling is tough. Also, if you like what you hear and have heard, you can visit us where?
You can check us out on YouTube,
Spotify,
or wherever you get your podcast. Rate and review, it helps. And we love you. Yeah, check us out on TikTok.
All the
Instagram.
spots. And you can follow Twigs at...
Oh, it's okay. They'll find me.
Wow. I love that. I can't wait till we get to a point where we can be like, they'll find us.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, one time.
All right. Until we see you next time, Jamie Heath.
I'm Liz Plank.
And this is
Man
Enough.